Good afternoon. Welcome to our FieldTurf webinar. We'll just give it a minute for everybody to jump on. Thank you for joining us. We'll get started in just one moment here. Thank you for your patience. All right, we'll kick things off. Thank you for joining us today for the FieldTurf webinar Guide to Maintenance. My name is Yannick DeSanza. I'm the Director of Marketing for Target Sports. I'm really excited to cover today's topic. We have a lot of great content reviewing kind of best practices around field maintenance, as well as the latest in smart field technology. So just a little housekeeping items before we get started today. So the session is being recorded, just for your awareness. If you do have a question at any moment during the webinar, please send it through the chat or raise your hand. We'll be glad to answer them. We will pause for questions after each section, so you'll definitely have the chance to ask your questions. And we look forward to having you on today. So thank you for joining us. I'm excited to introduce today's expert. Tyler. Tyler is our FieldTurf service expert, and he's going to walk us through the best practices around maintenance. Take it away, Tyler.
Awesome. Thanks, Yannick. Yes, I'm Tyler Fitzsimons. I'm actually part of our customer service team here at FieldTurf, and also serve as our FieldTurf maintenance expert. And I'm always happy to work with you. So if you ever have any questions as they come up during this webinar or even afterwards, please don't hesitate to reach out. Happy to answer any questions you have pertaining to maintenance. But I always like to reiterate that I am part, of a team, and you all do have a regional coordinator, assigned to you. So keep that in mind if you ever do have any questions, as we're all standing by and happy to help with those. Here. And so it's been quite a winter, and it's nationwide. It's been a fairly long winter. Up here in Montreal, we're at I think we're looking at our 6th month right now. But finally, we're getting above the 0 degrees, and the things are looking nice and spring-like. So it makes me excited. I get quite excited this time of year to talk about how to reopen our fields and get everything in proper shape for the season to come. I know that for some on the East Coast or in other northwestern snowy regions, the fields have been under snowpack for quite some time. Out in California, we've had quite a rainy season. So we do want to kind of just take this time to go through all the best practices of maintenance and what we could do to properly take care of the field to get you going, and also, for safety of all our athletes. So I'm sorry, I kind of skipped a slide there by accident, but the first thing we're going to want to do is we want to start with just walking the field. So once everything is cleared off and we're ready to get back out there again, I recommend we just walk the entire surface. And if you can, bring someone else with you, possibly 3 or 4 people. I've spoken with some customers that actually section off a quadrant of each field for each person, and they can walk and take a look for any issues. So things you're looking for, is debris that may have come down over the winter season, got under the snow, and any other type of issues that may have blown in or, on the field, or anything that's migrated out there. Essentially, you will be moving on to equipment procedures. So the idea here is to remove and get anything out of the way of that equipment, so that you don't have to stop your equipment, move it, and then resume. So it'll kind of keep things a little more efficient for you that way. And sorry about that. I always recommend that we inspect the high use areas. We're going to actually go over a few of those. So we'll take the guesswork out of that and kind of identify on the types of fields what those areas are. And we just want to validate that we have correct infill levels. We do provide an infill depth gauge here at FieldTurf. So if you don't have one, do reach out to us. We can make sure you have that to take those measurements. And that's going to ensure that these areas are properly filled. And it's very possible we may need to add some infill to those areas. Once we do that, we want to take a look at our B.A.R.S procedures. B.A.R.S is an acronym we use here, refers to the 4 main components, I'd call them, for our maintenance services. So we have brushing, aerating, raking, and sweeping. And we'll go into what each of those do, why we do them, how often, and what equipment do we need, to make sure we're doing those properly. Finally, once those equipment procedures are in place, it's a very good time to conduct a Gmax test. We'll talk a little bit about Gmax and what it does, but essentially that's the test that's going to survey the hardness of the field. And it's a great thing to do once we've finished off all our procedures, to get going for the season. So we mentioned B.A.R.S, brushing, aerating, raking, and sweeping. And these are the four main components that we always would recommend once you're ready to move into your new season. So brushing can be done with our FieldTurf static brush. What it's doing is we're rejuvenating any matted fibers and leveling that top portion of infill. So essentially, as winter, did its thing on our fields, especially on one under snowpack or anything like that, it's very possible you may see some fiber layover. And what brushing will do is actually return those fibers to the proper position. And they're going to help with, by leveling that top layer of infill, it almost acts like a soil, holding an actual needle of grass. So that top layer of infill will be evened out and will actually support the green fiber. So by doing the brushing, that's what's going to help you, get the fibers in the proper position. And we recommend we do that every 4 to 6 weeks. We also have aerating. Aerating, I would first say it's not recommended you do this if you have a brand new field. We only recommend you start the aerating process after your field's been installed for the 2nd year. Reason being that when your field is installed, the infill needs some time to settle. There is a settling process, so we don't want to disturb that process by aerating too early. If you're in your 2nd year onwards, it's certainly a function we can be looking at. And spring, very good timing for it, very popular. I would always plan to do an aerating session during the spring. What it's doing is we're using rotating tines. That's where you see the red image there. Some people actually refer to them as star wheels, and we're penetrating the lower level of infill. So unlike brushing, where we're touching the fibers at the top and that very top layer, we're actually getting into the lower levels of the infill system, and we're loosening it. So what this is going to do is help avoid any compaction. And of course, if there's been any kind of snow cover or snowpack over the course of the winter, then this is a good time to get that fluffed up. We then move on to raking. So raking is a little bit less aggressive, I would say, than aerating. So it's not necessary, it can be done a little more often. Whereas aerating, you're looking at maximum 3 times per year. Raking is one of the components we can do every 4 to 6 weeks, just like brushing. We are going to be going into the infill system with the rakes. We are not going to be going as low into the infill system as we are with the rotating tines like we do in aerating. Again, this is going to help prevent with matting fibers, but also loosen and even out the infill. So this is where it's what's going to help level out high spots and fill in low spots and kind of get a better planarity as a whole with the infill. And finally, we have sweeping. Sweeping is sweeping. It's definitely certainly no issue with over sweeping. You could definitely do that as needed. Sweeping just cleans the field surface, and we remove any foreign material that's gotten, into the infill. Or sorry, prevent foreign material from getting into the infill, I should say. So before, as we said, with that field walk, that's why we kind of want to walk the field before we move on to these procedures, so that you're not getting interrupted while you're doing these components, or causing any issues for a sweeper, with the debris that may have been on the field from the winter time. When we do these, when we perform these maintenance operations, we always want to reiterate our direction of operation. So whether that's spring, summer, this would never change. This is always a recommendation we have right out of our maintenance guidelines. And that recommendation is that we always operate our equipment from sideline to sideline. we never want to be going from, if we use the football field as an example, we never want to be going from end zone to end zone. And the reason is that as your field is installed, you actually have seams that are sewn. And the panels are sewn from sideline to sideline. So with equipment that has rotating tines, spring tines like rakes, we don't want to be operating that equipment into those sewn seams. If something were to happen, it's repairable for sure. You know, it's certainly not the end of the world, but to prevent that inconvenience, we definitely recommend keeping the sideline to sideline operation. The speed, the recommended speed is 3 miles per hour. So always keep in mind that slow and steady is going to win the race here. You don't want to be taking too fast on the turns. So I always recommend we even go slower on the turns. So this is all about slow speed and very wide, slow turns. And that's what's going to help, ensure we're grooming properly. Also, as you're brushing again is the feature that's going to really impact the green fibers, right, to get them standing up. As you're brushing, you may want to, in one session, brush north to south. The next session, you might want to start south to north. And what that would do is ensure that the fibers are kind of being brushed evenly on both sides, so they're not holding a memory, to go to one side or the other. Baseball fields, we get quite a few questions on, the direction of operation, because you don't have the visual like you do on, the football field with the actual, yard lines. So those seams go from outfield down to home plate. They don't go from foul line to foul line. So wanted to reiterate that for you. And these are our high traffic areas. So again, this is definitely something we want to take a look at spring, especially if we've been doing any kind of plowing. If you've been plowing the field, which is definitely a normal thing to be doing, it is possible that you could remove some infill with the plow. It could cling to the snow. So it's very important that we take those measurements just to see, if anything has dropped below, a typical standard. And apart from spring, this is regular practice. This is certainly something we want to be taking a look at fairly regularly. So we'll go over them really briefly. We've got on a football field, we're looking at areas from the end zones up to the 10-yard lines, our interior hash marks and numbers. And on soccer and lacrosse, we're looking at corner kicks, goal creases, and of course the center circle. So I always recommend that if possible, we kind of keep a pail of infill, maybe at the player's bench or somewhere nearby where it can be seen. Because I always find it works as a bit of a visual reminder to say, oh, hey, I better get out there and check out on some of these areas. Baseball, of course, haven't forgotten about you. So we do have slide paths, pitcher's mound, especially where the pitcher is planting their foot, your home plate area, batter's boxes, and the right-hand batter's box. For obvious reasons, we always, I would recommend taking a look at that, after games and practices, and simply adding infill if you find it's been kicked away. Sometimes it's just displaced and we need to rake the infill back into those areas. So again, not just for spring, but regularly throughout your season, we do want to be checking on these areas. A couple things the infill is doing is it's number one, it's protecting the field itself, and of course our athletes. So that's also going to factor into the safety of your athletes. So we want to make sure we're always being topped up in that area. So sanitizing. Sanitizing is very popular lately, obviously, and it's not something new to us. FieldTurf always did offer sanitizing, but certainly as of March 2 years ago, it became quite a high demand for it. So we've decided to kind of include some information on that because we do get quite an increase, in questions about it. We offer an EPA-approved coronavirus sanitizer. It's called Imperial. We offer it in 5, 55, and 275-gallon containers. And there's a couple ways you can go about applying it to the field. One is a do-it-yourself method. You would need a tractor and a wet nozzle boom sprayer that can apply it. there's folks have gone with backpack sprayers, but it is quite a lengthy process. Definitely doable though. Or secondly, our crew can come in and help you with this portion. So it's possible that you may be really familiar with your brushing, aerating, raking, and sweeping, which is great. Very good news. You know, you might be very proactive with the maintenance component, but maybe you just need us to come in and apply this sanitizer. So we could either come in and just apply that for you, or we could build it into a full maintenance visit and take care of all those maintenance functions for you at the same time. I know today we're talking about your field, but do keep in mind that you know, we know that you have a track surrounding it. We have a gym, you know, inside with indoor flooring. So if you're looking at any recommendations for those facilities, don't hesitate to let us know. We could likely help you out with that, and also make sure you're being recommended the right products for those as well. So this is what I kind of touched on in that previous slide is our Field Cleanse Service program. That's where our crews will come in. We'll spend a day on site. And we're going to do all of the brushing, aerating, raking, and sweeping, all with our own equipment. We will take care of that, the sanitizing. We put it at the end, kind of like the, you know, the wax at the end of a car wash. We'll come in and top it all off with that sanitizing right at the very end. And we do a couple other things. We're going to take those infill measurements. We do a magnet sweep where we'll remove any unwanted metal, you know, debris that's landed on there. Handle any minor repairs, you know, if we see them on site, repair them if possible to do it at the same time. Those high traffic areas, we'll make sure we're adding infill to those. And we're going to give you two things. We're going to give you the infill measurements prior to us doing the grooming, and then we'll do the infill measurements again afterwards to show you how the grooming fills in those low spots and the high spots then get evened out. So if you ever have any questions about that, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We have crews are doing this service every day, multiple fields per day in every region. So please don't hesitate to reach out if you'd like us to schedule a visit, and we'll be happy to help you. Once we've moved on, you know, from all of our equipment and possibly sanitizing procedures, it's a very good time to schedule your Gmax test. I do want to be careful, just to reiterate that we are coming out of winter, which means nighttime, we still have temperatures that could drop below the freezing level. Or if you're up here in Canada, they're always below the freezing level. But if so what we're waiting for is the time where the temperature is no longer that cold at night. Once things have warmed up, we could then do the Gmax test. The reason we don't want to do that is the field could still be hard if we're still under freezing temperatures. So we want to get more of an accurate read on our numbers. So always keep in mind that we want to schedule it when things are well above the freezing point. And what we do, essentially, we drop a weight right from a fixed height onto the surface. And that then sends us a reading. And the reading is done in G-force. It's measured in Gs. There's a magic number of 200 that we always want to stay under. So 200 Gs would be what we would consider, or sorry, the ASTM was considering the maximum. So this is the number we want to stay under, and it's a good time to have it done right after you've done all your grooming procedures, because you'll get an accurate read on the field when it's properly groomed, properly brushed, and ready to go. Yeah, so there is a, ASTM does recommend to do the testing at least every 2 years. I honestly don't find any issue with doing it annually if you wanted to. It's not typically a budget buster. It's relatively quick and easy. We're on and off the field within about an hour or two at the most, depending on its size. So if you do want to do that annually, we can build that into our services as well to make sure you're getting that each year. I find it helps because you are given a report, when that's complete, and it kind of gives you a snapshot of how the field is looking and how your maintenance functions are working, year to year. So that's a possibility as well. And here it kind of outlines where these Gmax tests are performed. So when we talk about dropping the weight, we're doing it at the center circle. We're doing it at the, kind of as you saw in the high traffic area, we're doing Gmax locations at that end zone into that 10-yard line. So that's why these areas are important, that we're always keeping topped up, with the infill. And because some of these do actually also fall into ASTM Gmax locations. This time of year is very popular for graduation, especially as we get into April and May. We really start doing a lot of the planning out there. And we get a lot of questions on how much weight can we put on the field? And it's a really valid question. Unfortunately, there's not really a great answer on that, because the turf itself will handle the weight. It's not an issue, but the underlying base, that's where we're concerned, where we could exceed a pressure that could cause damage to the base. So we always recommend that staging and any equipment, any heavy duty equipment, not exceed 70 PSI. So it's not so much how much weight can I put on the turf, but how much pressure can be exerted on the underlying base. So again, that's 70 pounds per square inch. If you're renting equipment, those folks should be able to provide you with that information. If they can't, don't hesitate to reach out to us, and we can do our best, just with our experience, to help you, ensure that we're doing the right thing. Seating comes up quite a bit. We always recommend, if you are going to be setting up any kind of seating arrangement, that we use chairs that have full contact to the ground and not post chairs. So what we're referring to there is, you have chairs that have 4 individual legs. If you can get the ones that have the front 2 and rear 2 legs with a bar connecting them, that's going to evenly distribute the weight and create less divots in the field. Now, when I say divots, all this is infill. It's displaced infill because the legs have displaced the infill in those areas. It just needs a grooming, so it would take quite a grooming afterwards. So if you had those kinds of chairs, you'd be looking at less divots to fill in, but nonetheless, a good field grooming when you're complete is going to get everything back in tip-top shape. We always do recommend not to ask ladies not to wear high heel shoes. It's easy to put the recommendation out there, but you still may bump into the situation where they're wearing them, and it could be real hazardous to walk on the artificial turf with them. So you can put down pathways to create an easier walking surface. You can do it with a 3/4 inch plywood if you're just having pedestrians walk. I always would say put a tarp underneath the plywood, just because it can release splinters into the turf. So we just want to be making sure that we don't get that into the turf and then burrowed into the infill system. And of course, as I mentioned, we should plan on grooming the event and doing a magnet sweep afterwards. We have to think, during these ceremonies, and I know I'm using graduation, but other events this can happen. But of course, in graduation, we have, there's clasps and snaps from gowns, there's jewelry falling off, there's paper clips attached to diplomas, graduation hats flying in the air, bobby pins falling down onto the surface. So sometimes we don't think about it, but when we do a magnet sweep, we pull up quite a bit of material, and there's always 1 or 2 students that's thrilled because we find one of their pieces of jewelry that, that we're excited to recover. If you'd like us to come in and take care of this, spend a day on the field, grooming, and we could include a sanitizer as well, and of course do the magnet sweep, I'd recommend getting in touch with us sooner rather than later, just because these visits do start to book up quite quickly as we get into those summer seasons. So if you had a date in mind, let us know. We'll get a head start on scheduling, and we'll make sure that we minimize your downtime, from the time after your event. Help you out with that. So we did talk quite a little bit about the maintenance procedures, how to do them, when we're doing them, why we're doing them. But I thought it would help maybe just to see the equipment that that we offer to do each component. So I'll very briefly cover each of those, and we'll take a look. So these two units are sweepers. On the left-hand side, we have our FieldTurf Field Sweep, and on the right is our FieldTurf Sweep Right Pro. So for the field sweep on the left-hand side, this unit, very popular. I'd say this year it's been quite a demand for them. I think the popularity is coming around the ease. They're very easy to use. There's no motor, there's no moving parts. It's simply connected to the back end of any of a Gator utility vehicle, and it uses friction. So it's literally like a drag mat going along the fibers, and as it's catching those fibers, they're flinging any kind of debris into the unit, which can then be emptied out, off of the field. One thing about the field sweep is that we offer some components that you can pull to. So if you're pressed for time, or you want to cut that sweeping time in half, you can literally pull 2 units in tandem, and we can supply, the tools and the connection pieces to have that done. We also offer a dome cover for leaves, so for a larger capacity. So that's, the field sweep side. On the right-hand side here is our Sweep Right Pro. This one is a gear-driven sweeper. So it does use hydraulics inside the blue hopper there. So you can see these handles on top of the unit. Those are pulled up and all of your debris is collected in there. Your brush is underneath that, and it's a gear-driven brush that's going to be doing that as you're sweeping. What's built into there as well is a vibrating hopper. What you folks may have seen, in your regular sweeping is it's very normal to pick up some of that infill. Putting it back into the field can be tricky, especially when, it might be contaminated with other debris. How do you separate it? So this unit actually has a vibrating hopper inside that will do that as you're sweeping. So it's going to sieve the debris, but it's going to return the infill back into the field. So there's no, removing it, possibly throwing it in the trash because it was contaminated or anything like that. So it'll always kind of help you keep those ideal infill levels. And this here is going to be a quick little video on our field sweep. This was over at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, and just going to give this a little play so you can have a bit of a showcase on the unit for you.
Field sweep is really fast and it's easy to use. It leaves the field looking good. It helps kind of move the fibers around and stand them up or lay them in a pattern if we're looking for something like that. And we've got times where we have a 12-hour window to flip a field from a soccer pitch to a football field. And being able to bring out the field sweep, especially with the tandem bar, and have 2 of them running, can knock out a lot of time for us. And I would absolutely recommend field sweep to anybody using the synthetic surface.
And so again, if you had a, if you have a field sweep unit now, you may not be aware that you could pull the 2 in tandem. So don't hesitate, don't hesitate to reach out here and we can get you squared away with all the right parts. Get going, try not to replay the video here. Here we go. So that was sweeping. Now we go on to grooming, where we're talking about brushing, aerating, and raking. So our FieldTurf Groom Right on the left-hand side here performs all 3 of those functions in one unit. I'd say it's our most popular for that reason, is that it can do all of the components in one pass. So at the bottom of the unit here, you can see the brush. After that, you can see this, it's a little bit hard to see, but we've got the rakes. Those are spring rakes. So those are set into the infill, and as you continue to pass, that's what's doing the raking component, where we're loosening that top portion of infill. Inside the unit, It's covered because the rotating tines are those rotating tines. So that's where we have what you saw on the air rating, what we also call the star wheels. That's what we're doing every 1 to 3 times per year. Again, only if after the second year of installation, to help really loosen those levels of infill. And I know we talked about the field sweep and how we can kind of increase our capacity. We have a solution to the groom ride as well. We call them wings. They can go on either side of the unit. The unit is 7 feet wide, but with the wings, they're 3.5 feet on either side. So it extends it to 14 feet wide if you want to increase reduce the time. And the static brush. So the static brush is just the brush on its own. That's on the right-hand side here. Some folks already have grooming equipment and don't need a full all-in-one. So if you only are needing the brush, we offer that independently as well. Again, to do your brushing every 4 to 6 weeks. And we talked a little bit about the magnet of our crews, performing that during our field cleanse service. It is, we offer that to you as well, if you'd like to have one as part of your equipment. And keep in mind, you can see here that the magnet is actually attached to a SweepRite Pro. So these units can be pulled behind one another. So that's always important to remember. But regarding the magnet, it sits very low over the field, and a simple pass, again, about 3 miles per hour, will remove any of that unwanted metal debris before it gets its way into the surface. Nick, how did we do for time? Are we okay if we wanted to take a few questions?
We sure can. Thank you very
Okay,
much,
awesome.
Tyler.
Thank you.
So we'll open it up for questions for Tyler. You can submit them through the chat. And if not, we'll also break for questions after.
Yep, I'll hang around too if we want to, then he come up after the fact, so.
For sure. So the second part of our presentation today is really taking a look at some new and latest technology in terms of, oh, we actually got a question here, so I'll pause.
Great. Okay, awesome.
Perfect. So we have a question regarding sanitization. So after you sanitize, how long do you need to stay off the field?
Sure. So once you sanitize, it can leave, a wet residue. I would say you never have to wait much more than about 24 hours. You're going to be in good shape. If you're in a pretty dry climate, it could be dry by the time we've completed the other end of the field. So it could be as quick as right away. I personally look after, do a couple things here. So I personally look after the California region. When we sanitize in the summer, there's very little downtime. As a safety thing, sometimes we say, just do a visual check, touch, make sure you don't have any kind of wet residue left over. And if things are dry, you are good to go.
Super.
Yep.
So we have a question here around potentially booking maintenance.
Absolutely.
How can somebody get in touch with us?
Perfect. So we're going to make sure that you have, I think at the end of this webinar, the information. You could always come directly to me, but each one of you does have a regional coordinator here. They're not here, but they do look after your region, and they're in touch with we call them a field care crew, and they're in touch with your crew each and every day. So it will not be any news to them. If you inquire, we'll send you out a written explanation of everything we would perform in that maintenance visit. And then we'd ask you when you were looking at scheduling, and if all looks good on your end, we'd work on a date. So we'll ensure that you have our customer service number as well as a method to reach me directly. And I'd always be happy to put you in touch with the right person on our end here.
Perfect. Thank you, Tyler.
You got it.
There's a question around the mat sweep or the field sweep. What is the best way to sieve out potentially the infill that's collected by the tool?
Yeah, so it can be pretty tough because you are picking up quite a bit of debris. You can use a blower that will blow just, if you have kind of fine dusts and things like that, that can blow just the debris out and kind of keep the infill aside. That's where a unit like the SweepRite Pro, is quite handy because it'll kind of remove that aspect for you. Also, if you're picking up too much infill, sometimes your sweeper could be set too low. So you may want to take a look at the guidelines of your sweeper and ensure you're setting the brush not too low. If we are talking about just the field sweep unit, it's normal that it could pick up. What the field sweep unit is picking up though, it's not being scooped, right? It's not like a brush where we're scooping it up into the unit. It's really just leftover infill. If it were to be, so it would not be the end of the world if it was disposed of, as long as you're proactive about top dressing. So as long as you're top dressing those high traffic areas with your attic stock of infill, you're making up for what the field sweep would be picking up. I hope that answers that question.
Yeah, I think that works. Thank you. And there's a question regarding why do we have to wait until year 2 to use the groomer, but I believe that's for the aerator.
That's right. So very good question. And I'm sorry if I was unclear in any way, but the groomer, the groom right that you saw there, has 3 functions. It's got the brushes, it's got the rotating stars, which is the aerating, and it has the spring tines. The spring tines and the brushes can be used right after your field is installed. Certainly no issue. It's the rotating tines that are going into the lower levels of the infill and loosening that infill. Because after installation, when your field is installed, there's about a 1-year-long settling process. So you have to think the infill is put in the field, but no one's been on it yet. So it hasn't had the benefit of being played on. It hasn't had the compaction that would come from whether that be athletes or snowpack. In that first year, any of that is going to actually contribute to the settling of the infill process. So for that reason, we'd only start with the rotating tines and aerating after that process is complete, which takes about a year for it to completely settle.
Perfect. And we have another one here around, can you add rubber infield with fertilizer spreader?
Yes. Oh, yeah. Sure. So with with the spreader, you can. Now, the spreader itself will scatter your infill. What it may not do is get it into the fibers. So yes, the spreader will help. It's certainly with distributing is the word I'm looking for. With distributing your infill, but you may want someone behind you with a plastic rake who's going to help rake that into the fiber, so the infill really gets encapsulated, underneath the fiber. But yes, definitely a normal thing that we've seen.
Super.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tyler.
You got it. And I'll hang out if anything else comes up there.
Fantastic. Thank you. So we'll move forward to the next portion of our presentation today, which is really highlighting a great new system called FieldTurf Genius. And it really focuses on turning your field into a smart field using the latest technology. So we'll just play a little intro video to introduce you to FieldTurf Genius.
4 years ago, we started to wonder, what if we could make sports fields play better and last longer? What if we could automatically track the number of players, the hours of usage, and send maintenance alerts based on accurate real-time data? Then, when the maintenance is completed, automatically record the areas covered, time spent, and provide an updated heat map. What if we could weave the most advanced machine learning, computer vision, and AI into the very fabric of the field? So you never have to fill in another maintenance form again. No forms, no human input, no administration. Welcome to FieldTurf Genius. Using the online dashboard, you can access the real-time data, identifying the exact maintenance requirements and live condition of your field. Our technology records all usage and maintenance automatically, without the need for manual data input. So how does it work? We've used computer vision, deep learning algorithms, and sensor fusion. Much like you would find in self-driving cars. We call it smart field technology. FieldTurf Genius, making sport smarter.
So FieldTurf Genius really is game-changing technology. And what it really helps to do is connect technology and maintenance to make your life simple. It's extremely advanced, but it's extremely basic at the same time. And it really helps maximize the longevity, the playability, and the safety of your field for your athletes as well as yourself. It helps track maintenance, sends automated alerts, service tracking, has an online dashboard, and eliminates the need for human input or forms. We've all experienced moments where there's human error, there's forgettiveness, we're not keeping track, and then you really don't know the exact status. Genius takes all the guesswork out of it. It's all automated, online, and easily accessible. And that allows you to plan better. It optimizes scheduling. It increases rentals. It certainly improves the management of facilities, especially if you have multiple facilities that are not at your place of work. If you're managing 6, 7 fields like a park district or a school district, you can see exactly what's happening on every single field right from your desk. And it more than justifies the investment into Genius. It helps you monitor usage. You can know exactly how many and how often your field is being used, which areas are being used, which moments are being the most used, and it'll even send you off-hour alerts if there's suspicious or unsupposed activity on the field. And it's all powered by 2 intelligent sensors, which are attached to oftentimes the light fixtures. So it's a very simple installation. There's no giant machinery. It's these 2 simple sensors that are capturing your entire field. So how does it work? To better enable an actual usage, we've converted field usage to equivalent usage hours. So we're calculating the number of players on a field, how long they're performing, and calculating a usage hour. Because one athlete playing on a soccer field or football field for an hour most certainly doesn't cause the same amount of damage as 1,000 athletes playing 1 hour on the same field. So this enables the true activity on the field to be measured. So you can understand exactly how and how often maintenance should be applied. Just like your cars, right? Driving 10 kilometers or 10 miles is not the same as driving 100 miles. So by tracking maintenance, it gives you an automated maintenance calendar. It notifies and tracks service, all online, no human input. So you'll know exactly when maintenance was performed. You'll know exactly when maintenance is due, and you can actually see live trackers. So just like when oil needs to be changed on your car, you'll know exactly when the next machine brushing needs to happen or decompaction. So all live tracking, which can enable you to either hire outside staff or plan your maintenance crews around it. So now it's no more guesswork. You do the maintenance when it's actually due and not if it's not. It enables you live monitoring, automated alerts, off-hour alerts, you know exactly what's going on in your field at all times. You can monitor usage. So usage tracking, how to rotate surface use. So if we take this example here on the left, you can see the usage is all in the middle of the field, which is pretty traditional. But you can also see if you're breaking down the field into quarters, usually the area that gets used the most is the area that's closest to the entrance gate. So it enables you to tell your coaches or your athletes, all right, we'll practice this week in the top left corner and then rotate out. Or if you're running your drills, let's do it on this side of the field this week, and next week we can do it on the other side. And after the maintenance is performed, you'll see this is before maintenance and then after maintenance. So you actually see if the maintenance was done properly and adequately. So when I say it takes all the guesswork out of it, this is the proof. This is right at your fingertips, right from your desk. And this is all trackable. It's all live. It's all easily accessible, easily shareable. This puts all the control back into your hands. And that allows you to plan better. That allows you to see and optimize scheduling. That allows you to see if there's opportunities for rentals. That allows you to improve management. And that certainly helps justify the investment. So all that together really creates a smart field. And Genius has been extremely popular since we've launched it. We've seen great return from clients, and the clients that have installed it across the world have seen the true value. But this is really the next frontier into turning your field into a smart field. And it's just a very simple installation. It's very easy to get going and get it started. So if you are interested in Genius, we can certainly set up an advanced session and walk you through the full dashboard. But we wanted to introduce the smart field technology and FieldTurf Genius today. So that is our webinar for today. We'll take a pause for some additional questions around maintenance for Tyler or FieldTurf Genius for myself. So if you do have a question, please send it through the chat and we'd be more than happy to answer it. So I did see that we had one question just before I got started. So the question is around, we're installing a new field in the spring. What is the recommendation regarding cleaning and Gmax?
Sure. So the good thing is you'll have a, sorry, you okay if I take that one, Yannick?
Of course, yes, of course.
So the good news is you'll have a brand new field. Typically, right after that field is installed, as part of your installation, a Gmax test is performed. So typically a Gmax test would be performed right after the installation as part of the, and excuse me if I don't get the words right, I come in more on the after installation phase, but part of maybe the closeout or a part of your checkoff is that would be performed once the field is complete. So it kind of gives you the snapshot of what you're going into with your new field. I would still, in that first year, I would still do brushing, raking, and sweeping every 4 to 6 weeks. The sweeping can be done more frequently in terms of cleaning. When it comes down to cleaning products, we have something called FieldTurf Scrub, and it's a great product for use of spills, you know, anything like that. So I'm glad you asked that question because it's not something I covered earlier. So you kind of opened the door, you know, to that. So I really appreciate that question. If you'd ever need any of those products, do reach out to us or speak with whoever your project manager is about perhaps having one of those left with you after the installation. So you're all set, ready to go to keep things clean. And thank you. It's very nice to hear, you know, a proactive approach, especially right after a new installation. So I'm sure you'll be getting the most out of your field with that.
Fantastic. Thank you, Tyler.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see any new questions coming in, but we'll be sure to communicate Tyler's information as well as our FieldTurf Genius material for those that are interested. And our team is available to perform maintenance for repairs or additional service or preventive service. We're certainly here to help. So we hope that you enjoyed this webinar. We'll be sure to send out our contact information. And if you have any questions, our experts are here to help. Oh, I got one last little question here. So there was a question around what is the best way to clean up potential, let's say, spills or things that would need to be cleaned up?
Very well done, Yannick. It gets in customer service, we're quite used to those questions, so there's no limit there. The Field Scrub detergent is going to be a really good help. It's going to help you get things clean, but also have no negative impact on the fibers themselves. The sanitizing portion, I would leave up to you. You know, if you wanted to hit that area with sanitizing, we could provide that for you to do it yourself, or we could come in and help you, you know, with that. I would start with using our field scrub to get the whatever we're working with out of the field. So sometimes that could be, you know, something sinister may have happened on the field, something like that. You know, someone felt unwell on the field. The field scrub will be your first go-to, and then speak with us if you folks are considering the sanitizing option as well. We'll make sure you're fully equipped.
Super. Thank you, Tyler.
Yannick, if you don't mind, I did want to touch on that. You know, especially if you have an indoor field, I would recommend doing the sanitizing. You know, I'm certainly not an expert in I'm not a viral expert, that's for sure. But one thing I've learned, over time is that an indoor field does not get the benefit of the UV rays of the sun. So I would definitely recommend going a sanitizing approach if you were to have that experience on an indoor field. Sorry about that.
No trouble. That's a great recommendation. Thank you. All right. So that is it for us today. Thank you for joining us, and we'll be sure to reach out with all the necessary information. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.